Let's go through some more theory parts. So here, when we use JDBC to perform database operation, then we have to do these steps by ourselves. We load class, we get the connection, we prepare the SQL statement, create the JDBC statement, submit the SQL statement through the JDBC statement in our database, process the result, we clean the, or you can say we close the resources by ourselves. In the above code, more statements like loading the class, getting the connections, creating the JDBC statements, closing the resource are happening again and again. So we get code duplicacy error. Not error, we get the problem of this dot code duplicacy. In JDBC, Java developer is responsible to create the table by ourselves. As we have discussed, we have to generate the primary key, load the driver class of DB vendor, maybe of MySQL or Oracle, getting the connection, prepare the statements, writing the SQL statements. These are the things that we have discussed, but let's go through once more, populating the JDBC statement with the SQL statement that we are going to create, pushing those inside the database and clearing the resource, closing the resources. In Hibernate makes things easy. If we use Hibernate, then Hibernate system is responsible for taking the connection, creating statements, and releasing the resources. Hibernate will automatically get the connection, create these statements like a statement, prepare statement, callable statement, and also close these resources automatically by itself. It is responsible, Hibernate runtime system is responsible to create the table inside the database. In case of JDBC, we have to first create the inside the database, then we will use the JDBC from the Java program. But here, from the Java program, table will get created inside the database. Hibernate system is responsible for generating the SQL queries which are well tuned in terms of performance. Hibernate system is responsible for generating the value required for primary key column. Hibernate will automatically take value from object class like customer. It will take value from the customer object and put those values inside the SQL queries and insert into the database. Where this is happened, we have discussed this. This happens in Hibernate runtime system. Hibernate runtime system does these things. Hibernate system is using many persistent best practices and forces developer to use them for better performance. Hibernate Introduction. So what is inside the introduction? Hibernate is a persistence framework. Hibernate is a framework, persistent framework, which is used to implement database operation, or you can say persistent operation. It is a framework, persistence framework, which is used to perform database operation or implement database operation. Hibernate framework was implemented by Red Hat. Like there is an JDBC API which is further get implemented by the DB vendors. So right here, Hibernate framework was implemented by Red Hat. Hibernate framework was implemented by Red Hat. Architect of Hibernate is Kevin King. Hibernate is ORM tool, object relational mapping tool, and is best among all other persistent framework like Abatis, Toplink, JDO. So these are some other ORM tools like Hibernate. So what is the meaning of ORM tool? That Hibernate is ORM tool. Look right here. object. ORM means object relational mapping. So Hibernate is object relational mapping tool. So what we are doing here is we have object of a particular class. Customer class is object we have, and we have database. So this database is relational database because it is composed with the combination of rows and columns. So this is the relational database, and here we have object. So object of a class, object, and database is relational, object, relational, and we are doing the mapping of this object and database in right here, Hibernate mapping document. So it becomes object relational mapping tool. Hibernate is object relational mapping tool. We are mapping, we are establishing the relation between this object and this database, which is of relational database. Object relational mapping. So Hibernate is an tool which is object relational mapping tool. So this is what it means by saying Hibernate is object relational mapping tool. Hibernate is object relational mapping tool. Hibernate can be implemented either by XML approach or by annotation approach. We will go through this when we are doing the code of Hibernate. JDBC specification is given by Sun Microsystem and implemented by various database vendor. We already talked this. Hibernate is implemented on top of JDBC technology. That is, you can use Hibernate API which internally uses JDBC to contact database. We saw this like here. Hibernate is implemented on top of JDBC. Here is JDBC API, and on this Hibernate is implemented. When we are working with Hibernate, it automatically talk with JDBC API. Hibernate automatically talks with JDBC API. So it is implemented on top of JDBC technology. So that's all in the introduction of Hibernate. Let's see what else we have. So these are the couple of mappings. Hibernate support various mapping styles. Simple mapping, collection mapping, inheritance mapping. Inside inheritance mapping we have these three, and in association mapping we have these three. In Hibernate we only have to go through these mappings. That's all. Hibernate is all about these mappings. So right now don't get bothered what are these mappings. When we do our Hibernate code, automatically all these mappings are going to be get covered. When we reach inside many to many mapping of association mapping, that means our Hibernate program is completed. Hibernate topic is completed. Right now don't get bothered about these mappings. So that's all in Hibernate. Now what we have to do is we have to create our first Hibernate program. We have to do our Hibernate code, first Hibernate code, in which we are going to establish the relationship between the class, maybe a customer class, and the table. That for customer class, what table is going to be created, and the four variables inside the customer class, what columns should have to be get created, and we are going to insert the value through the object of that customer inside the table of database. So these all things we are going to do In the next video, we will do our first Hibernate code in next video. So stay tuned.